Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live video cast where we talk with people from all walks of the publishing industry. I'm Christy Stratus, historical suspense and historical fantasy author, and my amazing co-hosts here are Richard H. Stevens, he's an epic fantasy author, and David M. Kelly, who writes sci-fi. So Lurking for Legends is an interactive broadcast, and we encourage you to chime in the chat and let us know if you have any questions at all for our guest, or just chat with each other, have a good time. So tonight we're going to be welcoming a crime fiction author, Brenda Chapman. Welcome, Brenda. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks, Christy. It's great to be here.
Brenda.
Thanks.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi.
So let's just start out with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your books, and then we'll get into our questions.
Okay. So I am a crime fiction writer, or murder mysteries. It's my genre. I live in Ottawa, Ontario, which is a city of about 1 million people, but I grew up in a community of 2,000 people on the North Shore of Lake Superior called Terrace Bay. So I bring both of those perspectives to my writing. My career before writing, I was a special education teacher for 15 years when I first moved to Ottawa. And then I moved into communications for the federal government. And that was about the time I started creative writing. I started with short stories. A few were published. And then I moved on to trying a book. And the first book I wrote was Running Scared. It was a middle grade mystery. And I wrote it for my 2 daughters, who were 12 and 9 at that time. Found a little publisher in Toronto, and it turned into the 4-book Jennifer Bannon mystery series. But I always wanted to write for adults. And so I tried a couple of standalones. And then the last 7 or 8 years, I've been working on 2 series, the Stonechild and Rouleau police procedural series. That was 7 books. And then I was also simultaneously working on a contract for a mystery series of adult literacy novellas, the Anna Sweet Mysteries, and both kind of wrapped up in 2020. So since then, I've started another series, the Hunter and Tate Mysteries. And the first was released in March, Blind Date. And I'm working on the second. And that's pretty much it.
That's really
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, so sorry, Christy, I didn't mean to jump in.
No, go ahead.
I just wondered, with your background, what got you into writing crime mysteries?
Yeah. My husband wonders that as well.
Keep one eye open?
It's what I love to read. You know, I studied English literature at Lakehead University, and I would kind of work through what I had to read to get to a murder mystery so I could have some free time doing that. So I think, you know, and in university, I also took a creative writing course. It ran the whole semester, and it was poetry and short story writing. And I enjoyed that course more than any of my English literature courses, which should have been assigned. But I never thought about being an author at that point. I didn't really think it was possible. I'd never met any. And yeah.
Yeah. So do you watch or listen to or check out true crime at all then?
I don't like true crime. that stuff freaks me out. I don't. Yeah, my husband will watch it, and I can't. But give me, an Agatha Christie or, a suspense movie or something. I'm really into that, but it has to be fictional. I don't like the true crime stuff.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can understand that. I saw that in Blind Date, your main character is a true crime podcaster.
Yes.
So I wondered if you did that because you personally like true crime, but it suits perfectly for, of course, your genre.
Yeah. No, I was thinking of a hook. You know, you often need a hook or something to go the long haul in a series. And a true crime podcaster, I hadn't seen anyone do that before, and thought it might be a good thing for my character to do.
It's intriguing. It's definitely a good hook.
Yeah, for sure. And so you released Blind Date on March 5th.
Yes.
It's the first book in the Hunter and Tate Mystery series. Do you have a certain amount planned? Now, you mentioned before we went on there that this one's self-published. So I was going to ask you if it was done by a publisher, they might dictate how many books are going to be in the series depending on sales. But you're doing it yourself. So how many books do you have planned for the series, or you're just going to wing it?
That's the beauty of publishing your own books. You get to dictate. And
right.
I haven't decided yet. I'm working on the second. It's called When Last Seen. And I'm aiming for next spring to put it out as well. I'm thinking at least 3, but I'm starting to really like the characters. If you write series, you start to get into them and don't want to see them end. So I think there could be a few books.
The fun part's trying to kill them.
So in the Stonechild and Rouleau series, that's set in many different parts of Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wondering, do you visit the places where you set your novels? And do you think a sense of place is something like very important in a mystery novel?
Yeah, I think a sense of place is vitally important in a mystery novel. And most of those places in my books I've visited. The first book, Cold Morning, started in Ottawa, but I thought, my main character, Kayla Stonechild, is an Indigenous cop that comes down from the northwestern Ontario, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And I thought she just needed a smaller community. So I kind of set it up in Cold Morning that Jacques Rouleau, her supervisor, was going back to Kingston to take over major crimes there and look after his father. And Kayla Stonechild followed him. So I went to Queens. I studied, that's where I went to Teachers College. So I know the city, and we'd often go back in the summer with our kids for a visit there and stay in a hotel. But my husband and I started making trips down there to hunt out places to kill people, to dump bodies.
You don't hear that every day, do you?
No. But his favorite was, we did one of my characters in Bleeding Darkness has a bit of a drinking issue, and she likes to go to different bars. So we went to each bar that's in the book, and I wrote it off like it was research. So that kind of thing. Yeah. But most of the places I've been now, I set my last book in that series north of Sault Ste. Marie. It's called Closing Time. And while I've been up there and around there, I hadn't been to this particular area north of the Sault. So I used Google Earth a lot and did a lot of searching. So I'd find a place and I would look it up on the internet and look for photos of it and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So just for anyone listening who's not familiar with our geography, the Sault is on the eastern edge of Lake Superior, right on the top of the Great Lakes. So it's probably the biggest city up in the north, isn't that, Dave? It's probably bigger than Thunder Bay and Sudbury.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to find out how to spell the Sault, like how do the...
Yes.
Yeah, because there's 2 ways, right? S-O-O and S-A-U-L-T.
That's right, yeah, the real way.
Yeah. The natives go with S-O-O, I think.
Oh, really? Well, then that's the real way, then, because they would have been coming at first.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were saying that you use Google Earth when you can't necessarily go somewhere or you want to sort of check out the area maybe in advance. I definitely, I know for sure there's so many places writers can't get to all the time. And especially if it requires like expensive travel, that can be tough. And so using something like Google Earth can be so helpful. Do you have like any kinds of tips on the way that you've sort of like chosen your locations, either based on maps or how you go about using your Google Earth in a way that you're sure it's like accurate, anything along those lines?
Yeah, well, of course, it's optimal if you can get to the location.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can zoom right in on the streets and look at the houses and the buildings with Google Earth, which is really great. But the latest book I'm working on, I wanted a place in Ottawa that was along the Ottawa River because of the storyline I was going for. So I just kind of picked an area, and I hadn't been in that particular neighborhood, but I picked a street at Lock Isle Road, and I curl in the winter, and I was sitting with my team, and I mentioned, my latest book, I'm sending it out in this area of the city, Crystal Beach, and blah blah. And one of my team members said, "I live on Lock Isle Road." So, and he said it's not called Crystal Beach, it's called Rocky Point, which I didn't see on the Google Earth. So he invited me and my husband for lunch. We went last week and we walked all the street, and we, and it gave such a different perspective than me just looking at it on Google Earth. So really, I'm beginning to think I have to go visit these places just to get the details right.
You've brought up such an important point of locals and the difference between what you see necessarily online from people who are writing about it but disconnected from it, or Google Earth, like you said, and seeing people or speaking to people who are actually physically there and now know how to locally refer to it. That's a really good point.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing to watch for, especially in Ottawa, is there's so many one-way streets. So if you get someone going, and I'm directionally challenged, I admit it. And there's so many times that I've had them go north when it's south, or they're driving to the Queensway and I have them going the wrong way. And these little things kind of slip into the book if you're not careful. So and people catch it. Everyone will catch it. In fact, in Blind Date, I had an on-ramp to the Queensway, which is the major highway through, off Bronson Avenue. And my husband's the only one who caught it and said, "There's no on-ramp there." He said, "There should be, but there's not." And you have to go do it. So anyhow.
I find that our readers are smarter than we are, especially when it comes to our books. Like, you think you know your own book better than they do, but they know better than you. So.
Yeah.
So true.
We got a question that said, "Hi, everyone." Not a question, just a comment. Hillary's
Thanks, Hillary.
Really looking forward to reading Brenda's books. That's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
you mentioned, Brenda, that you saw that you mentioned that street, and then one of the people on your curling team corrected you. And so do you use people, like, since she's on that street, would you use her in your stories, and maybe not use her by her real name, or would you use personalities of people that you know in your books, or
it's
is
actually
everything totally fictitious?
It's fictitious. I would not ever want to have anyone embarrassed by being in a book. I do use their names, but I'll give them a completely different character. And I don't know if you guys have done where you do a draw for charity. Someone gets to have their name put in your book if they win the. I've just done one. I've done several of those. So there's quite a few names peppered through my books that won the contest to be in my books. So that kind of thing. And all the money's gone to charity. So have you done that? Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That's the idea. I invite my readers to name dragons in my books, but I've never done it for a charity. I just I do it for them. So it's my way of giving back to the reader to say thank you for believing me and reading my books. And I include them in the front of the book saying thank you to Brenda for naming such and such a dragon.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. It's a good way. It's a good way to have readers get something that a memory in a book that they're in, their name is in. I had one guy who wanted to win one of the contests, and he wanted me to kill him off. So I said, I never kill off someone who's given me their name in my books, but he didn't win, so I didn't kill him off.
That's too funny.
So Brenda, you write for adults and middle grade fiction as well. So could you tell us a little bit about the differences on how you approach writing for those different audiences?
Yeah, well, I haven't written middle grade fiction for years. Like, that was my first 4 books were middle grade when my kids were about that age. But since then, I've written for the adult audience. But I could tell you the difference between writing for like the mainstream adult audience and the adult literacy stream of novellas. So the adult literacy novellas are written at an adult comprehension. So the story has to be something that you or I or anyone who reads really fluently would find interesting. But they have to be written, my books are at about a grade 3-4 level. So the sentences are shorter, and sometimes, because there's humor in my books, when I would have a word I'd want to use and it'd be 4 syllables, I'd have to find a 1 or 2 syllable word. So they're really challenging to do. There's not much backstory. It's just a straight ahead story, these novellas. So just a really challenging kind of thing to do, but lots of fun too. And you really have to get concise. It's almost like a long short story where every word counts. So we're really interesting. I think it tightened up my writing for the other books as well.
For sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how long would it take you to write a 60-page novella? Like, because of the extra work that you're actually putting into the pages. Like I write like tomes of fantasy, and not all my words are tight. So
it would take me about 3 months. So I would write. I was doing the two in the same year, so I would write the longer book. It would take me about 8 months, and then I'd have 3 months to do the novella, and then all the editing and all that. So I'd be editing the one book while I'd be writing the other, and it was a bit of a juggling act. But sometimes I'd mix up my main characters. I'd have to go back and change, But it was fun.
I think that's a common problem with all us authors. We start naming different characters. I printed a book where one character is not even in the scene, but I mentioned her anyway. And one of my readers pointed out, so that became a really quick first edition. Luckily, I didn't have a great print run on it.
Yeah, I've done that too.
Yeah.
In fact, when I'm editing, I have to make sure I don't give the character the wrong name. It's very easy to do. Yeah.
I think as authors, we're thinking forward. We're thinking somewhere else other than the scene we're actually supposed to be looking at, because our mind's just going a million miles an hour. So for sure. Yeah.
So you also write police procedurals. You're saying. So tell us about the research for that. That must be, well, I'm sure after you start, like your first book, it must get easier from there. But tell us about the research for that. That must be really something.
Yeah, well, I've read a lot of police procedurals over the years. A lot of them are British, so Canadian is a bit different. But I belong to a group called Capital Crime Writers, and I joined them when my first book came out. So it's been a lot of years. But they would have cops in to talk, detectives. They had all kinds of professional psychologists in. I remember one was talking about psychopaths. They had like every expert you could think of come in to speak. So I learned a lot through that. And then Cold Morning, I had a retired police guy read that manuscript and give me some pointers. He pointed out a few things, like I had my one character locked in the trunk of a car and thought that they would die, they'd suffocate. And he said to me, no, there's too much air circulation. They would not suffocate in the trunk of a car. So I had to drive them out to the Arboretum in the middle of winter, 30 below night, and leave them out there to freeze to death in the trunk of the car. But those kinds of things you don't know. But as Linwood Barclay said, we're writing fiction. We're basically making this stuff up. So if you get a few things wrong on the procedure, it's not terrible. I also think that, a cop's regular day-to-day life would bore most people. It wouldn't make for good writing, so you have to ad lib a little bit. But I do have there's a new policeman down the street who just moved in, and he's agreed to read my manuscript over. So I'm really excited. And he said he would even take me on a ride along. So
that's so cool.
I'm going to try to hold him to that.
Yeah. Would you then recommend to anyone in crime fiction or looking to break into crime fiction that they should have like a police person read the book?
I think if you can find one. Now, I have other friends who are writers in Ottawa who have a cop that they give their book to read their manuscript. So I think it's a great idea if you can find someone. Now, the one cop wanted me to pay him if he was going to keep reading. So I thought,
really wrong.
I'm not making that much. So yeah, and the other authors,
right.
their cops are reading for free. So I thought, well,
yeah.
We got one that's just saying your Google search history would be interesting to see. Yeah, I'm thinking.
I was thinking that.
Yeah.
You might get CSIS involved. Yeah.
I did look up I think it was Duluth Police, because In Winter's Grip, my adult standalone book, was set in Minnesota. And I was looking to see what color their uniforms were. And I noticed they checked me out after, because you can see who's looking at you. And it was them, the police in Duluth. So I guess you do have to be careful.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Another cybercrime units would be all over that for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to change the subject a little bit just so I don't lose this question. And I think it's important to all us authors because reviews are important to an author. And while I was researching you and your books on Amazon, I came across a review of the book, A Model Death. And I was quite puzzled actually by the review. The feedback was all positive, which seemed a little strange when you saw the end. But it's like, here's a couple of points that I've read quite a few books by this author, and I like this one. Another point, I like this author's writing style. And though it's the fourth Indiana Suite series, it works as a standalone. And then they went ahead and gave you 3 stars. I'm thinking, what's up with that? Like, they don't say anything negative. Like, I just pointed out the stuff that they actually were saying about the book. There was nothing negative about it, and there's 3 stars. So as an author and a person, like, we got to separate that too, because you have feelings. How do you, as an author, and more importantly, as a person, deal with reviews? And some especially like that, like that's not a bad review, but they only give you 3 stars. So in my mind, I was thinking, what the heck?
3 stars for some readers is a high mark, and so you don't really know what their grading system is.
No,
and that was a novella, so some people pick it up not realizing it's a novella for adult literacy. So some of those get scored a little lower, but yeah, we all get those 1 or 2 star reviews, and I think on Goodreads now I'm up to about 13,000 ratings on my books, and yeah, there's some bad ones in there. A lot of them, I had the first 2, Cold Morning and Butterfly Kills, in the Stonechild series, were made into audiobooks by my publisher, and some people really dislike the narrator. So they've given my book some really low grades and said some terrible things about the narrator. And I've learned just to let that kind of stuff roll off my back. And what someone said was, when you get bad reviews, a bad review from someone, then they're not your reader.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. So, and that's fine, because everyone has their own tastes, and so I've kind of learned to roll with that, and to try to focus on the good reviews, because there's way more of those.
No, absolutely. And I didn't point out though, because I thought it was a bad review. I don't think it was a bad review at all. I thought it was odd that they only give you 3 stars, because they said nothing but good stuff about your book. And I'm thinking, well, that's probably a 4 or 5 star to me. But like you say, everyone rates things differently. But as just a general observer going through the Amazon reviews, you go, this person didn't really like it.
There've been a few like that, where they go, oh, I love this book, and blah blah, and 3 stars. And, it's perplexing. But
I think the strange review I saw in some authors' thing was this had nothing to do with sausages or something like that, and they were talking like produce from a store, and I'm thinking, where did that even get in there at all? So it's bizarre how people review things.
Yeah, some of the comments are very strange. Like someone said, "Oh, you had him put the coffee in the filter, and way too much detail."
Oh my goodness!
So you just don't know.
What you said is right. Like, not every book is for every person. Like Stephen King, J.K. Rowling, all those bestsellers, they get so many 1-star reviews. So
it's amazing.
Move on.
Yeah,
for sure.
I was looking at your cover. You had said that, I believe you had said, correct me if I'm wrong, that Blind Date is self-published. Is that right?
Yes, it's right here.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Show us that cover, because my question is about the cover, actually. It's a really nice cover.
I'll move it this way.
There it is.
Yeah, you can look it up online. You can really see the kind of, I guess you could say, ominous, like suspenseful feel that it has. And you know what it reminded me of? And I was just looking for it in my bookshelves because I have this book. It reminds me a little bit of the cover for An Anonymous Girl by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen. Do you know that book by chance?
No.
Do you follow their works? Okay.
No.
So that is similar, suspense thriller type of thing. And I just wondered, I noticed that it's quite different from your other covers, and I didn't know if you had, in particular, like yourself, done the research on creating that cover, or if you went to a cover designer and said, here's my genre, can you just make something that fits it now? Like, can you give us some insight into your cover designing as a self-published author?
Yeah, well, what's funny is that the same designer who did all my Stonechild and Rouleau books did this one as well, because she does contract work as well. But this one I had more say. When you're working with a publisher, they pretty much decide the cover of the book, and they might give you a choice. Once they gave me a choice of two, and I picked one, and they used the other. So your input isn't always valued, I guess. But here, I looked up different covers on Amazon to find out the ones that I wanted and the feel that I wanted for this book. And I found a few and then sent them to Laura, is her name, and she looked at them, and then she gave me about 8 or 9 choices. And this was the one I picked. I said, this is the closest to the feel I'm after. And it really suited. So, yeah. So, and that's a fun process too, working with the book cover designer. I really enjoyed it. I also had the book made into an audiobook. And this was the first time I had spearheaded this kind of thing. So I found a woman who's an evening host on the Shea 106 radio station here in Ottawa. And we just clicked instantly. And she does different voices, and just did a fabulous job. So she'd never done it before either. And it took us a while to kind of find our feet and get the pacing of the book and how much emotion to put in different scenes and that. But she was just fabulous, and she did all the production herself. Her name's Heather Williams. And yeah, it was just such a fun experience. And she wants to do the next book as well. So yeah. I really, so I like the control you have, self-publishing.
It's one of the biggest pluses to self-publishing, for sure. Yeah, I was gonna say that's an unusual way to find an audiobook voice, like a vocal talent. I was going to ask you, how did you find her? And that's so interesting. Yeah.
Well, I had done some radio. For some reason, this other local station would have me on at noon with another guest, and we would talk about the news of the day. I guess because of my background in communications. And so I got to know this guy, Mark Sutcliffe, was the host of the show. And he kind of wound down that show. He's doing other stuff. But I approached him to see if he knew of anyone. And he had connected me with Shea 106. Initially, another disc jockey, I call them, but host. But she didn't do voices. And she said, Heather Williams is the person you want. So that was sort of how I connected up with her. There is, what's it called? Find Away Voices or Faraway Voices.
Find Away, yeah,
and they will hook you up with someone. And I looked at a lot of the narrators, and they were American, and I really wanted a Canadian voice. And that was sort of my goal.
That's excellent. We have a question here from Wanda. Is Blind Date a standalone novel?
Thanks, Wanda. No, it's the first in a series. The next one is called When Last Seen, and it will be out in March again, I'm hopeful. And then I'm hoping to keep writing. So there should be 3 or 4 or 5. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I hope you guys don't mind if I ask another question and really monopolize our guests. But since you brought up the second title, When Last Seen, and the first one is Blind Date, I'm really liking these titles. It's very clear what the genre is going to be. You have an idea that's going to be suspense, mystery, something along those lines. And of course, it's crime fiction. So how are you choosing these titles? Because I'm struggling right now with titles at the moment.
Yeah, it's horrible, trying to pick that title, because there has to be the balance where it doesn't give away too much, and it does give a hint of the genre, and it's sellable, and it's a title someone will remember. So I just start playing with words and see what I can come up with. So you sort of know your theme. Sometimes I'm hoping when I'm writing it, the title will pop out. So When Last Seen, the title I was working with is called The Stolen Ones, but I kind of liked When Last Seen better kept but lying in bed at night, trying to come up with that title, it can keep you awake.
And it's a phrase, right? It's also a phrase, so a little bit more easy to remember as well.
And I checked on Amazon because I like to look to see if the title's been used recently, and it hasn't been used, and I was surprised.
That's excellent.
My last book in the series I'm going to be writing in a couple months, I wanted to call it Heavy as the Crown. And there's a alternative metal song that used that, and it's actually very good, and it's almost fantasy-ish. I thought that'd be pretty cool to have that coincide with it.
Yeah.
But I researched it on Amazon, and there was some British writer that in 2018 they have a book called "Heavy as the Crown." I go, oh,
yeah, but too recent, right? I mean, if it was way back, you could use
exactly,
it. Yeah.
So I always do that too when I come up with a new title. I'm like, oh, I got to research it on Amazon to make sure no one else has it.
Yeah. It's tough. I've always found getting those titles hard.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Getting the genre across. What was that, Richard?
I don't think Dave has any trouble with his latest series having someone else have the same title name.
What's your latest book, David?
It's the latest one's called Collection Dawn.
No, I think you're good there.
Is that a native? Is that a native name or?
Yes, it's actually Salish, and it means eagle.
Oh.
Cool. Yeah,
that's cool.
I wouldn't be able to spell it.
Well, I kind of had a problem with that one because the first book I actually called just Logan's World. And I didn't realize that somebody else had done a science fiction book called Logan's World. It was actually a sequel to the book Logan's Run. The same author did. He did a series of books, and one of them was called Logan's World. And I knew all about Logan's Run, of course, but I hadn't heard of this other one. And so, like, I published it, and then somebody kind of like mentioned this, and it's like, oh, bugger, you know, and or words to that effect. And so I very quickly had to come up with something else. And the planet that it's set on, I had the name Collection already, and I thought, well, nobody's going to have that.
No.
So I just kind of like, right, well, we'll go with that one instead, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's very difficult sometimes to find something that's not being used.
Very. Since we're exchanging stories about this, I had to also do, just like David, I had to do a whole renaming of my second book, which was originally called Lock and Key, with E's at the end of both of those, an E at the end of both of those words. And, you know, as a lot of people will know, that is already a very, very popular series, graphic novels. I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. And it's because that is the name of the locksmith shop in the book. So it was perfect. And when I looked it up, I saw, you know, oh yeah, that's right. This you know, really big time author has that title already. But I thought, well, maybe it'll just appear in those searches too, and it won't be a big deal. You know, maybe it'll even work out for the best. And it was the opposite. I got buried. Nobody could find it. So, you know, that was when I was a wee baby author and didn't realize things like this. So, you know, now I do exactly what you all are talking about. And I research very carefully the name that I'm going to be working with and try not to choose something that's already been used.
I thought of naming one book Henry Potter.
You
might get trouble. Yeah, you might get trouble on that.
might make a lot of sales.
Henry Potter and the Beaver Tail or something like that.
I have heard of authors who try to hop on like a really, really popular novel name and name it something close. And the benefit is that you get found more, but of course the downside is that one of the reasons you're getting found more, people are going to start clicking on the book and accidentally buying it without paying attention, and then they get annoyed that it's not the one they thought it was going to be.
Then you get those 1-star reviews.
Yes.
Oh, exactly. And you're spending your Amazon ad clicks as well, when all of a sudden they realize, oh, that's not what I'm looking for, and then they get back out of it again too.
Exactly.
So true.
And I know in crime fiction there's a lot of the girl or the woman that became very popular. Every title had girl in it. In
historical fiction, it was the something's daughter or the something's wife. That's really big stuff. Still, people do that, which, you know, I mean, it just draws you right in. That's why.
Yeah, it works.
It does. It really does.
Yep. My first book was named The River Styx for 34 years. And then when I actually went to publish it, someone said before I published it, oh, I love Greek mythology. And I realized it has nothing to do with Greek mythology. So I had to change it. When I was young, when I started writing the book, I was so enamored with the name The River Styx. I thought, oh, I'm going to call my book that. And that wasn't a good idea. So anyway,
Yeah.
it didn't get published as River Styx. But so it's certainly the struggle is real, trying to come up with a catchy title name that screams your genre, like you say, and is not been used by someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of different words, on more than one of your blog posts, you mentioned beavering away. Now, I've never heard that before, and right away I'm thinking, okay, well, that means you're busy. So I guess that's what that means. But where does that saying actually come from? Is that something you've made up, or is that something I just haven't heard?
I don't know. Well, I'm from Northern Ontario, where there are beavers, so maybe that was just beavers are always busy building dams.
No, I've heard
Have
of
you?
that.
Oh, thanks, David.
Yeah, I've never heard that before.
I'm originally from the.
I just thought that was neat. I'm beavering away. What the heck? Oh, yeah, you're being very busy on your blog post. Yeah, you're updating between books. Yeah.
So, Brenda, earlier you mentioned Enid Blyther as one of your influences. My wife was a big fan of those when she was growing up, and kind of like read them all. The Famous Five and
Secret
some
Seven.
boarding school things. I don't know. It's kind of like, was never my kind of thing. Anyway, a lot of those now I think have been like republished with kind of like changes that make them more kind of like up to date and politically correct. And I was just curious about how you feel about those, having kind of like read them yourself.
Well, you know what? They're kind of time and place, some of these books, right? And things that are expressions or ways of looking at other people have evolved, I think, for the better. So I'm all for updating them for the newer generation, to have all of that stuff taken out of them that might be offensive to other people, because I think we really are evolving as a society, and our literature should reflect our time. I'm really hoping, though, that they don't take away the kind of the innocence of those children on their little mysteries and going home for the halls, and I think one had a bird Kiki, just that imaginative kind of stuff that I really enjoyed. I think, was it the Secret Seven? They had a clubhouse and they had a secret password to get in, and I loved all that stuff as a kid, and I hope they keep all that kind of stuff. But anything that really is derogatory to anyone or off color, I think should be removed, personally. But what does your wife think?
I'm not sure she would entirely agree. I think she would largely agree with you on that, on the changes. I think maybe sometimes when things are kind of updated, I think maybe they lose some of their original flavor, and that's kind of not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't want them to lose any of that, but just the stuff that might offend someone.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I saw that on your appearances page on your website, which is running across the bottom of our screen right now. I saw that you have been doing signings recently as it looks like about 3 this month, maybe, if I got that right.
I've got 2. Yeah,
two this month. Yeah. So, do you have? Well, first of all, it's great that you're doing those, because I think so many people are. I've been seeing so many readers saying how excited they are to go physically to author signings again, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. So, what can people expect from you at an author signing? Do you talk to people a lot? Do you usually do a reading? Is there anything special you do?
No, these are just in-store signings. Gotcha. So they kind of set you up near the door, and you try to sell your book. And it's, I don't know if you've done them, but they're difficult to do because you're kind of stopping people. And but I will, some stop and chat, and sometimes I'm really surprised who buys my book, because I don't think they will. But just you sort of start to size up people as they come in as who's possible. I'm really not a great salesperson. I kind of wait to see if they make eye contact and kind of hand them a bookmark, and then if they start chatting, I'll exchange with them and chat. And quite a few will buy, after they get to know you. And a lot of them go, you'll be talking to them for 10 minutes, and they go, wait, you wrote this? You're the author? So I don't think I'm clear enough about my role there. But yeah, no, they are rather difficult. But there are other things where I do readings. I'm going to often in the library kind of setting, or I'm on a panel on different things. So, but every event is different. But I love talking with readers and converting someone over to my books too.
Yeah. So if you're in a bookstore, let's say, that sounds like the toughest, almost like a version of cold calling in a way, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you don't know any of these people. They don't even know that you're there always. They don't realize. What is your advice in that case? Because I'm hearing that, you're saying one of the, weak points that you're realizing, which is really valuable that you said, is that they don't always realize that you are the author. So do you have some kind of piece of advice regarding that? Like the way you introduce yourself or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, this time I wore a name tag.
That's smart.
Yeah. Well, bookmarks, handing out a bookmark is good. And most people will accept one. And that gets you talking. I also say, do you like murder mysteries? And then that will, some will go, no, I hate them. Not my reader.
Have a good day.
Yeah, I'm just here for a coffee. I don't read. I've gotten that. But yeah, you just, and again, you just have to learn to roll with it and not get offended. And
everyone's so different, though. I during COVID, I had a booth in a market, and it's a pretty popular market down here in Southern Ontario. And people come in my booth, and I didn't know whether to say anything to them or not, because if I didn't say anything to them, it seemed like they'd just walk away disinterested. But if I said something to someone who seemed really interested, all of a sudden they'd look at me, and it's almost like I scared them, and they'd leave. So you never know how to approach anyone. So you just got to be you and do whatever works for you. And if people walk away, they walk away, and don't worry about it.
And I think if you're not like a real outgoing salesperson, you're not really pushy, or I think that's okay. I mean,
absolutely. A pushy salesperson would make me turn around and walk out right away.
Exactly. But you can tell the ones that come into the store and they spot you and they avert their heads and go the other way. They have no idea who you are, but they just know they don't want any part of it.
You there.
I sometimes got better traffic when I wasn't in my booth. I'd stand down a couple booths down talking to one of the vendors down there, and all of a sudden people would go in my booth, and as soon as I showed up, they'd leave. So
but
different. There's really no way to do it.
If you can make a personal connection with them, they will often buy your book.
If you can open them up. Some are a tough nut to crack. We just got a couple of comments in here. So JD Estrada is curious when people don't understand you're the author, like you're repping an author, and that's so true. When I say I'm the author, people are suddenly interested.
Yeah.
Most people see books and they're looking for their favorite author. They're looking for Stephen King or J.K. Rowling, whoever, and they see Richard A. Stevens. Oh, who's that hack? And they just keep going. But as soon as I say I'm the author, I was like, oh, you're the author, and it totally changes their perspective on the book.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it? I've had that at every live event I've ever done. It's like multiple people will come up, they'll look at the books, blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden they say, so did you write these? It's like, no, I'm just sat behind a table of all of these books with my name on it for no reason. It's really weird. It's like, yeah, I wrote them.
Yeah. Or asking where the washroom is as you're standing there. No, I don't work here.
Yeah.
So we got another.
We need to make T-shirts that say "I'm the author."
Yeah,
you don't have to deal with it.
That doesn't work either, Christy. I have my face.
Good idea.
I have my face on a placard saying, meet the author, and it's me. Like you can't. And then
you can't
from Vistaprint about 2 feet by 1 feet saying, meet the author, and it's right in their face. And
I bet you'd still get them.
They're shocked.
You'd still get them saying you're the author.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. Anyway, I just want to go back. I don't want to miss this. One of our viewers. So going back to what we were talking about earlier, she feels that things should be just left as it was written, even today, regardless of how politically correct people aim to be. There will always be people offended, and it's not the intention of the author to do this. However, it's human nature for readers to internalize as they read. Just her opinion, no offense. Yeah, but it's so true. Like I think a lot of things are not said the way it's taken, especially back then. That's the way they were back then. Does it make that right? No, it doesn't. But to change that literature now would be wrong. I think we'd lose something. But
I think for adult literature, but if you're giving these books to kids, I don't know.
Yeah. No, when you throw children in the fray, then that does make things different for sure. So we have a question from JD Estrada. Do you carry an extra copy of your books if you travel?
No, and I should. Sometimes I don't even bring bookmarks, and you meet someone and they, oh. So yeah, I do kind of kick myself. I have to get more organized. We're had and we're.
So JD's really picking your brain here. So what's the most awkward interaction you've ever had? And where does your farthest fan live? It's two totally separate questions. So the first one would be, what's the most awkward interaction you've had?
Probably just standing in a bookshop and people, like, they'll look at the book and whatever, and then they just kind of try to back away. and I just let them. I mean, it's, buy it or don't. It's, you're my reader or you're not. But people find that awkward. I think I've heard from readers in Australia, so I guess that would probably be the farthest away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't get much farther away than that. Yeah, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I see we've gone well past our 40-minute mark, and I just want to ask you. You said what's next. You said your next book is coming out in March, and it's called When Last Seen. So is that date kind of firm, or that's still moving around as the writing goes?
No, well, I've finished the manuscript and I'm editing now. I'm about to send it out to my beta readers, and I think that's a pretty firm date. I also want to say that I just had a short story published in this book. There it is, Cold Canadian Crime. It's an anthology Crime Writers of Canada just put out to celebrate their 40th anniversary.
Nice.
So there's that one too. It's up on Amazon. Anyways.
And that was my next question. So where can we find your books? Christy's got your banner scrolling across the bottom. That's your website. Where else can we find them? Obviously on Amazon.
Yeah, well, you can find them anywhere, really. They're in all the bookshops. And the audiobook is available through all the audiobook places for Blind Date, as well as the other audiobooks that are out. So any bookstore. Libraries, it's right across the country. A lot are in the US as well. But if it's not in your bookshop, you can ask and they'll bring it in, because they're easy to get.
That's the best way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
So thank you, Brenda, for being with us today. We really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's been great meeting you all and getting to know you a little bit.
Yes, and maybe I might do a book event up in Ottawa. I'm not sure. It's a little cost prohibitive now with the price of hotels in Ottawa and gas prices. I would have to sell a heck of a lot of books. So I've looked into doing some of the events up there, but
you'll have to look me up if you come this way.
Yes, definitely we will do.
Yeah.
So just before we leave, Christy, what's new on the Christy Stratosphere?
Not a whole ton at this moment. I'm, of course, working on my second grimoire book. I'm probably going to be putting up some voting on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/Christy Stratus, on the name of this series that I'm writing, and maybe even the name of one of my books. So if you're interested in participating in that, you can join for just $1. And there's a lot of fiction on there that you're not going to find anywhere else, all kinds of exclusive stuff, behind the scenes things, stuff like that. And if you're interested, I just did a live video with Margaret Pennard. If you're familiar with her, she's a historical fiction author, and J.C. Carpenter, who writes a lot of different genres. And so if you go over to Margaret Pennard's channel, just put her name in the search, Pinard. We did like an author tube type of tag, and it was just a lot of fun. So you could definitely, and David was there throwing peanuts at me. That was really fun too.
I wish I was there. I would have helped him throw.
Yeah. Only one person. No, he was great. So anyway, yeah, that's about what's new with me. I think. Yeah. What about you, David?
Not a great deal for me. Apart from today, I did actually have one sort of minor milestone, and that is the third of the Logan's World books. I hit the 50% mark. So
nice.
50% through the first draft of that. That's good.
It's great.
Awesome. So I think Dave's frozen on us there.
Yeah. Nope.
Oh, there you are. Okay, good. I didn't want to cut in on you if you were
still. I'm just very still.
So, with regards to myself, I'm about 2 weeks away from the completion of Windwalker, and this has been my biggest project yet so far. So book 14 in my Soulforge universe should be done in 2 weeks. I'm just doing the climactic chapters now, and then I'll have a couple of denouement chapters, and we'll be moving on. So I will be appearing at the Canada Day Festival in Riverside Park in Cambridge on Friday, July 1st. I'm going to be out there all day selling books. And 2019, they had 40,000 people go through there. But I think most of those people came through at the end of the night for the fireworks. I won't be there for that, but we'll see. So anyone is around Southern Ontario and want to see fireworks and buy a book, you can come see me at Riverside Park on July 1st. And then on July 2nd, I will be traveling up north and meeting up with a certain science fiction author, a well-known science fiction author, David Kelly. David Kelly and I are going to be at the Elmville Science Fiction Fantasy Street Fest. So this little town of Elmville, which is the population is not great, but the whole town does this science fiction fantasy street fest. So we look forward to that. We'll be selling our books, selling and signing our books up there. And if anyone doesn't know where Elmville is, it's about 10 minutes east of Wasaga Beach. And anyone in Ontario knows where Wasaga Beach is. That is probably the best beach in the province. So that's what's new with me. And so once again, Brenda, for David, Christy, myself, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
You're most welcome. And next week on Looking for Legends, it's another one of my favorite episodes. I love doing these. We just started doing them on the first Tuesday of every month. We'll be reading along with 3 epic fantasy authors and excerpts from one of their books. Lurking for Legends is pleased to announce the authors are Karen Eisenbury, Lambert Cook, and myself. So little note to everybody, I did try to get R.A. Salvatore. I have been in communications with him before. If you like fantasy, you know who he is. He's a pillar of fantasy, and he's been decent enough to get back to me. I've reached out to J.K. Rowling and Stephen King and all those people, and none of them had the courtesy to say, even get back to me because we're too small fry. Actually, I should say that J.K. Rowling's handler actually did get back to me, so I appreciated that. But most people don't even look or blink at us. And R.A. Salvatore has actually messaged me back and said, sorry, I can't attend. So anyway, that's who I tried to snag. I thought that would be such a coup if I could have got him in here. We just let him read the whole thing.
But, just sit back.
So anyway, again, thank you for being with us, Brenda. And we wish you well with Blind Date and your new book coming up next March. So until we meet again, take good care.
Thank you.
Good night.